Steve has the microphone. Thank you, Steve. Do Jewish people drink alcohol?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they do. That is very much a part of their custom, their culture, their tradition. And during Purim, they try to drink so much that they can't differentiate between the word Mordecai and the word Haman. I want to get so drunk that we can't tell the difference. So this is Solomon saying, wine is a mocker, strife, or a rowdy, anyone led astray by it is unwise. We have some of the Adventists have often used this as a verse to encourage people to leave off the liquor. And yet it's interesting to me that the Jewish people do drink a lot. And yet Solomon would write this. Is he right or wrong?
He's right.
Yeah, he's right.
Yes, because of the alcoholism is really.
He is right because of alcoholism. Strong drink especially is very bad.
It impairs the judgment is the real problem with it, and then people do silly things like think they can drive in the winter weather. That only compounds all the rest of the issues that are going on. All right, let's go on from there. Who are going to have reading, Steve?
Let's see. Hello.
All right. Okay, volunteer to read. Thank you.
Where are we here?
Proverbs 20, verse 2.
Verse 2. Fear an angry king as you would a growling lion. Making him angry is suicide.
Well, let's think about that one for a minute. Would you tease a lion that was not in a cage, that was freestanding in front of you? If you got any wisdom, you won't. And so it says here we should treat the king the same way. All right, let's go on.
Wait, can I say something about that?
Well,
From the standpoint of the fear of a king is as a roaring lion. I look at it as if God is our king, then a lot of people seem to, when they sin or when they know they're at odds, they're fearful to come back to God or to just go to God. And that fear of going back to the king or going to the king is likened to that of a roaring lion, which is what the Bible talks about. Satan goes around like a roaring lion seeking to devour, right? So that fear of going to him is putting yourself in the position to be devoured.
all right.
And so that's what is the provoking. You're provoking that by not going to God. You're provoking the that anger from the sin, because you're staying in the sin and not going back to God or going to God as we're instructed as redeemed. So I just want to
Interesting
point that out.
All right.
That's the fear of going to Him.
All right. All right. Appreciate that. Who's going to read now?
Okay, you're going to continue.
Microphone guy.
Any fool can start an argument. The honorable thing is to stay on
All
it.
right. Any fool can start an argument. Love that word. Any fool can start an argument. That is pretty good.
No, they can't.
Pardon?
No, they can't.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for illustrating the point. Very nice. All right. Go on. That's great.
Farmer too lazy to plow his fields at the right time will have nothing to harvest.
Does that make sense? I'm not a farmer, but it certainly makes sense to me. If He's too lazy to plow the field when he's supposed to. At harvest time, he's not going to get anything. Just makes sense.
We've had that happen too,
Okay?
because we failed to plow our garden once at the right time when it was dry. And then we had the rainy seasons to start. And then it went on and on and on, the ground was too wet, and so finally, when Ted thought it was dry enough, he went out and tilled the garden, and it was just not good soil that year because it was too muddy, it was too wet, and a lot of things didn't do very well.
You probably had a good crop of weeds. And beyond that,
Yes.
probably not a whole bunch. That just makes sense.
I'd like to also say to that, it's almost the same thing when you're dealing with people and you have the umption to speak, right? To drop seeds. If you fail with the people around you to drop seeds and you continually not drop them, you'll have nobody to spread the news with. Thus, frustrating your own self because you got this something to share, but you can't share it. You're not able to share it.
All right?
A person's thoughts are like water in a deep well, but someone with insight can draw them out.
Okay, let's go on.
Everyone talks about how loyal and faithful he is, but just try to find someone who really is.
That's a good one, too.
Children are fortunate if they have a father who is honest and does what's right. The king sits in judgment and knows evil when he sees it. Can anyone really say that his conscience is clear, that he has gotten rid of his sin?
Not this side of heaven.
The Lord hates people who use dishonest weights and measures. Even a child shows what he is by what he does. You can tell if he is honest and good.
All right, there's another one that if you know any verse from the Psalms or from Proverbs, you'll know this one. The character of even a child is known by how he acts, by whether his deeds are pure and right. That is so true. All right, go on, please.
The Lord has given us eyes to see with and ears to listen with. If you spend your time sleeping, you will be poor. Keep busy and you will have plenty to eat.
Okay, and farmers could talk about that forever. Very true.
The customer always complains that the price is too high, but then he goes off and brags about the bargain he got.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, and it's still true today. This version says, really mad stuff, says the buyer to the seller. Then he goes off and brags about his bargain. Yeah. All right.
If you know what you are talking about, you have something more valuable than gold or jewels. Anyone stupid enough to promise to be responsible for a stranger's debts ought to have his own property held to guarantee payment.
Also ought to have his head examined, I would say, but anyways, let's go on.
What you get by dishonesty, you will enjoy like the finest food, but sooner or later it will be like a mouthful of sand.
I like that one too.
Get good advice and you will succeed. Don't go charging into battle without a plan.
That's for sure. And that's something that I see every day at work. At Newell Rubbermaid, it's so obvious they never heard of master planning. They get a new machine, we'll put it over there. We'll stick it over there. Pretty soon we have mass chaos. The building could be set out logically, molding, printing, assembly, packaging, but instead it's mass confusion and gets worse constantly. Let's go on.
Get good advice and you will succeed. I already said that.
Yeah, 19.
A gossip can never keep a secret. Stay away from people who talk too much.
Oh, mercy. We aren't going to take any votes on that one, but a gossip goes around revealing secrets, so don't get involved with a talkative person. The wise man says. Let's go on.
If you curse your parents, your life will end like a lamp that goes out in the dark. The more easily you get your wealth, the less good it will be to you. Don't take it on yourself to repay a wrong. Trust the Lord and He will make it right.
Well, I have to do a lot of trusting, I'll tell you that, folks. I have to do a lot of trusting because there are lots of times when I am tempted to want to repay evil for evil. But it says that the Lord will take care of that, so leave it in His hands. Let's go on.
The Lord hates people who uses dishonest scales and weights. He said that twice. So
Yes, He
that's
has.
very important.
That one he's very definite on.
The Lord has determined our path. How then can anyone understand the direction his own life is taking? Think carefully before you promise an offering to God. You might regret it later. A wise king will find out who is doing wrong and will punish him without pity. The Lord gave us mind and conscience we cannot hide from ourselves. A king will remain in power as long as his rule is honest, just, and fair. We admire the strength of youth and respect the gray hair of age.
Yeah, that's a good one. The pride of the young is their strength, the dignity of the old is their gray hair.
Sometimes it takes a painful experience to make us change our ways.
All right. Sometimes it does. Any comments on chapter 20? Yes, Wade. We're not going to be about the gray hair either.
I'll let Doug go first.
I just had a question. What did the thing that was repeated 3 times about honesty? Why do you think that was?
Okay, why is the Lord so concerned about honesty? Because God Himself is honest.
You cannot lie.
He wants us to be likewise, but He knows us. He knows that a lot of people are dishonest. So He's going to mention that several times because it's important to Him. Go ahead, Wade.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the unequal weights.
Okay.
You know, we read about that and we think, okay, you know, the balance and all of that stuff. But, you know, what's coming to my mind is, I mean, there's so many different ways to interpret it. But, you know, how often do we, you know, when we do something, we have an excuse. When the other person does it, they have no excuse.
Yeah, we don't count them as the same slack we want ourselves, do we? Well, I mentioned it here a few weeks ago, but I'll mention it again. Man inherited his father's general store from him after the old man died. The old man had 2 marks on the counter, which he had used for years to measure cloth. The young man took the yardstick and put it by the marks. It was supposed to be a yard apart, and he found they were 35 inches apart. So who knows how many years his father had been cheating everybody out of an inch of cloth. And the young man thought, what do I do now? Well, to me, it's an ethical dilemma, but to me it's very obvious. What's the only thing the young man can do now? Pardon?
Correct it. That's all you can do.
Yep. Make it 36 inches, and from now on, give the honest yard. He can't correct the past. He's just got to do it honestly from this point on. You're going to say something more about the dishonest scales? Okay. Obviously, the Lord was concerned about them, and so was Solomon, because 3 times he mentioned it in that chapter. Yes?
It might be because it's such
You have to use the microphone because they're listening downstairs.
Oh, it might be because that it's such a big temptation to scale off a little. We knew somebody who was in building and would charge more, for the finer things and then buy the inferior. Well, everybody does that. And then so do you.
Yeah.
Well, that's because that's how it's done. Well, Solomon doesn't like that.
Nor would you.
And
if
it's
you
an
were getting
abomination
it.
to the Lord. It's a dishonest weight. And then if you play games, well, on my insurance, it's not a real lie, it's not exactly the truth, but I can get a discount. Or in my taxes, and maybe they'll never know.
Maybe they
But we know who does.
Yep, for sure.
And so 3 times, he says.
And you have to say that in February. During tax season. Or income tax.
It's
Yes.
a temptation.
It just came to me that, I don't know why, but just now, why not to deal in dishonesty, more so than just the appearance of honesty, is a faith thing. And your story kind of made me think about it. So the guy was doing 35 inches for, how many years? Say 30 years. So after a certain amount of time, to the guy cutting the 35 inches, a yard that's normally 36 inches actually becomes 35 inches to him. So the truth, right? His faith now has been adjusted to think that whatever the truth was, it is not now. So to him, a yard is now 35 inches and not 36 inches. The same way when we would be dealing with, in any dishonest thing, it starts to affect, I guess, inwardly, our ability to truly believe from a faith standpoint, thus hindering your belief in what could be, what reality really is.
But what reality is that the yard is still 36 inches.
Yeah, but to the guy, to the guy, a yard became not the truth.
Yeah.
So, thus hindering his ability to operate in truth.
Which would be a sad thing for the young man to find out after his father died. His father had
Amen.
been using a dishonest measurement all those years, but the only thing he can do is make it right now.
For himself.
From now on, give everybody a full yeah. All right, now we need another reader for chapter 21. Wade's doing his best to ignore you.
It's not going to work.
Okay, chapter 21. Be careful as you read this.
The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart.
All right, that one, I think of the book of Judges. You ever read the book of Judges? When my mother reads her Bible through each year, she skips the book of Judges. I always tell people, they talk about sex and violence on TV. It's got nothing compared to the book of Judges. Whoa, what a book. But at the beginning of the book, in the middle, and at the very end, the last verse tells why the book of Judges is such a mess. You ever read it? What's that little statement that you find 3 times in the book? There was no king in Israel in those days. Everyone did what was right in their own eyes. And I tell you right now, people, when everyone does what's right in their own eyes, you've got chaos. The book of Judges shows that very clearly. As does this verse. All right, read on, please, Wade.
To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice.
Did King Saul find that out? Yeah. When Samuel said to him, that's it. To obey is better than sacrifice. Hearken to the fat of rams. And other people have found out the same thing. Let's go on.
Yeah, but as the sin of witchcraft, I mean, we
Oh,
don't
yeah.
realize how
That's how
rebellious
bad it is. Yeah.
Haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked, are sin. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty.
How about that one? The plans of the diligent lead only to abundance, but all who rush in arrive only at want. That's why I want to wait right now. Yeah, that's right. Think of that one too. That's good. I like that. I'll have to memorize that one and use it as I walk into work every day. You've never seen my strut that I walk into work with. Nobody can stand to walk with me because I walk so slowly. I do it on purpose. I'm already there. There's no reason to hurry. If I need to hurry, I can, but I don't. Because I'm there on time. So I have my measured pace. All right, come on. I like it.
Getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a fleeting vapor and snare of death. The violence of the wicked will sweep them away because they refuse to do what is just. The way of the guilty is crooked, but the conduct of the pure is upright.
All right, now verse 9. I'm going to comment on it before we read it. Don't choose it as your favorite verse of Scripture. Don't go around quoting it. Go ahead, Wade, verse 9.
It is better to live in the corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife.
Okay. Now, Larry, you had a comment about this one, so for that reason only, we're going to stop on it. What was your comment about verse 9?
I just don't understand how
Say it again.
I don't understand how it got there.
I'll tell you how it got there. Solomon wrote it there. Tell me a little more about
I
it.
mean, was Solomon looking out one of his windows one day, and one of his servants came up and said, "Look at this guy down here on this rooftop quarreling with his wife. He'd be better off sleeping up there than going out down with his." I don't understand the whole thing.
I have a feeling, well, one of the things we've commented on several times this quarter is Solomon is the wisest man who ever lived. However, that doesn't mean he didn't do some foolish things in his life. In fact, he did 999 of them. I mean, he married 1,000 wives.
Imagine he quarreled with a few.
I'm sure that's true, and I'm sure it came from his own personal experience. And he set it up for himself. He can't blame anyone but himself for all those marriages. But I'm sure he knew from experience that when you quarrel, you'd rather live in the corner of a rooftop than inside the house with the 91. So even though it's his own fault, that's the advice he's giving to us, and it actually makes sense.
I'm looking at this from the standpoint of, I guess, two types of people, right? So you got the godly people and you have the ungodly people. Everything that we've seen from this book, the ungodly people pretty much will have nothing to do with God. And because of that, they blaming him, for their problems that they caused by not believing what he's already told them. And I would think that would apply here. So, a quarrelsome woman, somebody's mad all the time. He's saying, just like himself, he's going to remove himself from those who don't want to be with him, who aren't going to be in agreement with him. And as long as you're in agreement, you're okay to be around each other. But when you're in disagreement, he's going to go to his corner and you can stay in yours. And so, pretty much this whole book seems to be like that. The two types of people and what we would like to kind of associate ourselves. How do you want to associate yourself?
Okay.
I think this also might be some marital advice.
I think it is.
If you look at verse 19,
He's skipping ahead.
you'll see the same thing repeated over again. And I think Solomon's trying to give us a clue about the type of spouse that we engage ourselves.
And certainly he had enough experience in that realm that he can certainly give us advice, and it'd be to our benefit to listen to what he says. All right.
Just saying men can be contentious too.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say that,
It doesn't say that.
but it certainly could be. You're right. Good point.
It doesn't say that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
All right. Another reader? No, we're going to keep with Wade a little bit. We'll let him read a little. He's doing fine.
He's upset.
Well, that's all right. We can still read it even if he's upset.
Actually, I've been reading.
He's upsetting too, but we'll let him read it.
Well, but I'll tell you why it says a wife and not a husband.
Okay?
Because there is something here. I believe every time we read about husbands and wives, there's something spiritual involved as well. And Christ is which, and his church is which.
Yep.
And therefore, the wife is quarrelsome because
Doesn't want to do it.
Jesus is not quarrelsome for his church. The church is quarrelsome for him.
Amen.
So, all right, good point.
I mean, I'm that's not to say that men are not quarrelsome. That's to say that the symbolism here is consistent.
Okay.
Okay. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no mercy in his eyes. When a scoffer is punished, the simple becomes wise. When a man is instructed, he gains knowledge. So he doesn't gain wisdom.
Mine says, when the wise is instructed, he receiveth knowledge, which I like better.
Is that?
The wise become instructed. Or when the wise is instructed, he receiveth knowledge.
Yes. That's what I read.
Oh, I said man.
That's what I should have read.
Oh, sorry.
I'll read it again. When a scoffer is punished, the simple becomes wise. When a wise man is instructed, he gains knowledge.
All right, good.
The righteous one observes the house of the wicked. He throws the wicked down to ruin. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered.
Do you take 11 as a promise?
Do I take 11?
Yeah, if you look at it, do you see that as a promise? Almost like a process.
Well,
Promise of process.
I suppose. Also, he doesn't have the mic, so nobody answers.
You can repeat it.
So I feel power. I can interpret you any way I want to.
That's fine.
No, yeah, I suppose it would be. Now I'm teaching the class. Sorry, Bill, you go home now. That's fine. That's fine. The righteous one observes the house of the wicked. He throws the wicked down to ruin. I read that. Whoever closes his ear to the cry of the poor will himself call out and not be answered. Okay, now I'm back to where I was. Okay. A gift in secret averts anger, and a concealed bribe, strong wrath. Let me think about that. A gift in secret averts anger. How?
All right, so how does a gift in secret avert anger?
You do something nice.
Okay, we got on both sides. Okay, and Brother Armstrong.
He's already on this side.
For the sake of the downstairs, folks.
It doesn't prompt jealousy and fears.
Okay. All right. That would be the secret part of it. There'd be no jealousy involved. Keep Steve moving. This is good. Let's do alternate signs for congregation constantly. So you guys do one. Go ahead.
Well, sometimes if someone's angry with you, and you're not angry with them, you want to make things right, you give them a gift, or you do something for them, and it kind of eases things.
All right.
The relationship between the two, especially if it's just a private thing, and you don't, you're not going here and there and telling everyone about what they did to you or whatever. And I think it's always good. You can't allow someone else's attitude toward you to control your attitude toward them.
All right. Very good. And another comment.
I see a difference between bribe and gift in that a gift is free, it doesn't have anything attached. A bribe has something attached. You're expected to do something you wouldn't otherwise have done.
All right. Go ahead, Mike.
I see. We're talking about like settling out the court as a gift in secret. I was thinking more of you give somebody something they don't know who it's from. And I don't know how that would hurt anger. So
Yeah.
okay. When justice is done, it is a joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers. Amen.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. One who wanders from the way of good sense will rest in the assembly of the dead. I love Noah Kay's version reads there.
Let's see, what verse is that?
16.
16. Death is waiting for anyone who wanders away from good sense.
And this version says the person who strays from the way of common sense will come to rest in the company of the dead.
Whoever loves pleasure will be a poor man, He who loves wine and oil will not be rich. The wicked is a ransom for the righteous. Whoa. The wicked is a ransom for the righteous, and the traitor for the upright.
All right, let's handle verse 18 a little bit. The wicked serve as a ransom for the righteous. How's that?
Well, Christ became wickedness, so he was our ransom, and now we're righteous.
All right, so Jesus became sin for us, even though he knew no sin. So that would make sense. And how else would a wicked serve as ransom for the righteous? I'm underwhelmed. Second half of it says, and likewise the perfidious for the upright.
He speaks in other places about how the foolish will fail and the upright will succeed, and over and over he has that theme, how the wise man and the one who fears the Lord will rise, and the fool will fall.
All right, so he's just continuing that
Question
same
would be, would
idea.
be success.
And now we're to verse,
The clear word says the wicked will suffer what they have brought on others,
Yes,
and the unfaithful will pay for what they have done.
it's interesting for once. I like the clear word.
that's basically what this one says too.
All right. We're ready for verse 19, Wade. Here it goes. We already read it once. We're going to read it again.
It is better to live in a desert land than with a quarrelsome and fretful woman. And it throws in fretful, which I think of the children of Israel wandering around in the desert.
Were they ever fretful? Were they ever not fretful? Yeah. All right.
Precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. Whoever pursues righteousness and kindness will find life, righteousness, and honor. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. Stronghold in which they trust. Oh, think about it. I'm sorry, I gotta stop. Think about it. A wise man scales the city of the mighty and brings down the stronghold in which they trust. Is that what we're called to do in the last days?
Here's the answer.
No. The answer to that question? I think it'd be answered in the verse above it. How do you find righteousness? Right. So if you go after that, how do you what it's doing? From 22, scaling the city of the mighty and casting down the strength of their confidence. So you're no longer trusting in yourself. You're no longer pursuing your own righteousness. You're pursuing after his righteousness.
All right. Back to Wade.
Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. True. I will come. I'll keep my tongue. Scoffer is the name of the arrogant, haughty man who acts with arrogant pride. The desire of the sluggard kills him, for his hands refuse to labor. All day long he craves and craves, but the righteous gives and does not hold back.
All right. Well done.
The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more when he brings it with evil intent? A false witness will perish, but the word of a man who hears will endure. A wicked man puts on a bold face, but the upright gives thought to his ways. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but The victory belongs to the Lord.
All right. Chapter 21. Now let's go on to chapter 22 and see what we find there. Steve?
I don't have my glasses, but I'll show.
Okay, you got a window beside you.
So bear with me, I can't.
All
I
right.
cannot deny Steve's desire for me.
That's right. Since you volunteered, you're going to read. Here we go.
A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold.
All right, that's another verse. It might be one of those verses from Proverbs that you've learned and that you appreciate. That good name, that good reputation, very important. Go on, verse 2.
Rich and poor have this in common. The Lord is the maker of them all.
All right, so rich or poor, God made us. And that's repeated in other places in the scriptures. Go ahead.
A prudent man sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and suffer for it.
Yeah, they sure do.
Humility and the fear of the Lord bring wealth and honor and life. In the paths of the wicked lie thorns and snares, but he who guards his soul stays far from them.
All right, verse 6 is another one of the verses from the book of Proverbs that you probably know. Let's hear it. Go ahead and read verse 6.
As the common, train a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not turn from it.
Okay, so what is that verse saying to us?
Have hope.
Have hope.
Saying what?
Have hope.
Have hope? Does it give us any responsibility?
It gives us responsibility, but if we've done the best we can, it gives us hope because everybody's going to reach that time where you go, oh no, what have I done?
Sure. As parents, and many of us are or have been parents, so training the child in the way he should go. And then the second part's the promise, even when old, he will not swerve from it.
I like the Ellen White note that brought out.
Up front here with the microphone. Here.
Ellen White's comment brought out, it's train a child, not tell a child.
Okay. So it isn't just yelling at them.
So is that a way of thought
And action.
and action?
Train a child.
You train a child, by example,
Yes.
and you see a lot of the other.
Oh, yeah, we do. We do. So, training a child. Well, I'm a trainer at work. What does that involve? Does it involve anything I say?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, a whole bunch of what I say. Does it involve anything I do? Yes, because when I get out there, I've got to drive those vehicles and drive them in the way that I want my trainees to drive them. So, yes, training involves what you say, what you do, what you well, when you're training somebody, you want them to do things the way you do them. So when you're training a child, you want the same thing. So you better be training them in a way that you will want them to follow because they'll follow it.
So in order for them to do it the way that you want them to do it, they have to start thinking the way that you want them to think in order to do it,
That's
right?
part of training.
So then to me, I would think that even if you trained them to think a certain way, even if they didn't do it, they went against the thought to not, to do it had to have popped up. And I would think that would mean it would continue to pop up. They would have to just keep going against it, but it would still be there.
And so maybe someday they'll actually think for themselves and think correctly and come into line with what you've tried to tell them years ago. And people have hung on to that hope for millennia.
I think the idea here is, if you understand some of the culture and some of the Hebrew background, it's really talking about a standard. You have to have a standard. You can use this verse in conjunction with the word shevet, which means rod. It has various nuances, but to a person who was growing a tree, and he wanted that tree to grow straight,
You'll train it.
he'll put a rod by it, and the tree will grow up along the shevet, along this rod. Hopefully the tree will grow up straight. So I think the idea is you have to have a standard for your child. And if you keep that rod, that straight stick by the child, hopefully he will grow up by that standard. And in time when the tree matures, it's basically a straight tree. I mean, sure, things happen in life. I mean, we're people with choice. That's why Proverbs in chapter 20 says, who can make his heart clean? Your condition is one of sinfulness. And that's why you need God's wisdom. Because if you abide by your own wisdom, you're not going to grow straight. So we need that rod. And basically, if you want to speak symbolically, God is that rod of wisdom, and we got to measure that standard and keep that standard by ourselves and our children.
All right. Back to this. Verse 7.
The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender.
Is that true? In this world, for the most part, the rich do rule over the poor. And yes, the borrower is slave to the lender. It was true back then. It's still true today. All right, let's read on.
He who sows wickedness reaps trouble, and the rod of his fury will be destroyed. A generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. Drive out the mocker, and out goes strife. Quarrels and insults are ended.
That's for sure.
He who loves a pure heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king for his friend.
Wow.
The eyes of the Lord keep watch over knowledge, but he frustrates the words of the unfaithful. The sluggard says, "There's a lion outside." I will be murdered in the streets. The mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is under the Lord's wrath will fall into it. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from him.
All right, that's an interesting line.
And he who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and he who gives gifts to the rich both come to poverty.
Keep going.
Okay, sayings of the wise. Pay attention and listen to the sayings of the wise. Apply your heart to which I teach. For it is pleasing when you keep them in your heart and have all of them ready on your lips. So that your trust may be in the Lord, I teach you today, even you. Have I not written 30 sayings for you, sayings of counsel and knowledge, teaching you true and reliable words so that you can give sound answers to him who sent you?
All right. Solomon is giving all this advice to his children and, in a sense, to us. And he says he's written worthwhile things so that we will know how to answer.
Okay.
All right, read on.
Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court, for the Lord will take up their case. And will plunder those who plunder them. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered man. Do not associate with one easily angered, for you may learn his ways and get yourself ensnared. Do not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you.
All right.
Do not move an ancient boundary stone set up by your forefathers. Do you see a man skilled in his work? He will serve before kings. He will not serve before obscure men.
All right. So that's chapter 22. And what do we take out of chapter 22?
Why would you not?
Yeah, but they're wisely stated. They're wisely stated.
I liked how 21 is basically a repetition of the be prepared to show your be prepared to give an answer for your hope.
And Jesus himself used that one. All right, who has our closing statement for today's Sabbath school class? Okay, Ness has our closing statement.
I don't usually have one, but
That's true.
I want to simplify this as if we just comply with the will of the Lord instead of trouble.
All right. That's it. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father in heaven,